For the first time, countries including long-time holdouts like the United States and the EU agreed to establish a fund for nations vulnerable to climate disasters made worse by pollution produced by wealthy, industrialized nations. But little or nothing was done to phase out fossil fuels, which are the biggest source of planet-warming emissions that are causing the climate crisis. This, among other issues, will be our focus on this week's edition of Green Angle. Welcome. I am Esther Mapariola. After 2 weeks of intense negotiations, delegates from about 200 countries at the 27th edition of the United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt finally agreed to provide loss and damage funds for vulnerable countries hit hard by climate disasters. It also resulted in countries delivering a package of decisions that reaffirmed their commitment to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
Make recommendations on how to operationalize both the new funding arrangements and the fund at COP28 next year. The summit also saw significant progress on adaptation, with governments agreeing on the way to move forward on the global goal on adaptation, which will conclude at COP28. New pledges totaling more than $230 million were made to the Adaptation Fund, and these pledges will help many more vulnerable communities adapt to climate change through concrete adaptation solutions.
I now invite the CMA to consider Sub-Item 6A, Report of the Adaptation Committee, and Sub-Item 6B, Review of the Progress, Effectiveness and Performance of the Adaptation Committee. The SAPSTA and the SBI were unable to conclude their consideration of these matters, and they were forwarded to the CMA for further guidance. I requested the SAPSTA chair, Tosi Panyu, to undertake further consultations which have resulted in the draft decision before us. I now invite the CMA to adopt the draft decision entitled Report of the Adaptation Committee for 2022 and Review of the Progress, Effectiveness and Performance of the Adaptation Committee, contained in document FCCC/PA/CMA/2022/L10. Hearing no objections, it's so decided.
COP27 brought together more than 45,000 participants to share ideas, solutions, and build partnerships. The United Arab Emirates will host next year's Climate Summit.
Although the Loss and Damage Fund may be a win to some, the outcome of the summit was a bit disappointing for other climate activists, as world leaders failed to reach an agreement to phase out fossil fuels. Environmental activist and director, Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Nimo Bassi, shares his thoughts on the outcome of the climate summit recently held in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Disappointed because I was already disappointed before going. That's a sad thing, sad situation to be in. And one could actually ask, why do you go there when you don't hope to get anything positive from it? But going there helps to put a lot of pressure on the system. And if we don't have that pressure from the outside, from the civil society, then of course the negotiators and politicians will just keep on doing what they're doing without caring what's really going on. So the sad thing about the climate, the COP that just ended in Egypt, is that although everyone agrees that climate change is caused mostly by the dependency, the burning of fossil fuels, the COP came away without even acknowledging this. But what needs to be done is to put more pressure on our national governments. We have to change our stories. Our governments have to recognize the fact that going to the COP and just hoping to get a little bit of finance would not solve this problem. The donations or contribution pledges by governments, the rich countries, that some countries have also said that they would not accept any idea of liability. In other words, no, they don't want an idea that the loss and damage is being paid because they are liable. They are afraid of lawsuits that could come up that will compel them to meet up their obligations due to the harm they've committed and they've inflicted on poorer, vulnerable nations. This is the sad thing about this. When the rich countries who have polluted the atmosphere, who have driven global warming, say they don't want any sense of liability, then we can't expect too much from loss and damage. What some of us are asking for is a climate debt that recognizes the fact that somebody created this problem, somebody is still pumping more carbon into the atmosphere, somebody has historical responsibility and liability, and that should not be ignored. The thing about the language they use at the COP can be very funny. Face down, face out. And somebody says face down because they don't want to do anything. We've also heard at the Egypt when they were discussing about that they would phase out unabated fossil fuels. That is a loaded language. So they're looking for ways to continue with business as usual and appear to be doing something. And so abated fossil fuel would mean that you are polluting, and then you are capturing the carbon and you are burying it somewhere. So it allows people to invest in infrastructure, to invest in all kinds of false solutions. But I think ultimately, if nations don't wake up, they keep on playing politics with climate change, it will get to a point where there will be no choice. I mean, civilizations have ended before. They've come and they've gone. We all know this. The oil or petroleum civilization has not even lasted up to 200 years. And now it's on the last throes. It's coming to an end. So it's either it is end in a managed way or it will end in a cataclysmic way. In other words, it could just blow up. And then nobody will have a choice but to look for how to survive, if they could survive.
Green Angle returns in just a moment. Stay with us.
Illegal bushmeat is on sale in our cities, risking extinction and our health. We've become a centre for ivory and pangolin smuggling. So please report wildlife crime and say no to illegal bushmeat. And let's work together to win for Nigeria. Keep them wild, keep
Experts say the economic potential of plastic waste needs to be harnessed to ensure sustainable growth and development of any society. Well, this formed part of discussions at a symposium on intersectional environmentalism held in Lagos.
Following the recent floods that ravaged several parts of the country, leaving many displaced and hundreds killed, some environment enthusiasts believe community-driven solutions will solve the world's greatest problems.
It's important to create a framework with the relevant stakeholders.
At this symposium, which also had youth volunteers in attendance, seeks to help them fashion ways to mitigate climate disaster while unlocking several economic opportunities in the environment.
I'm trying to get the young generation to understand what is going on so that they can prepare for this and they can use the opportunities that, that will come up for their own benefit.
The corporates are the biggest polluters. There are opportunities. We need to incentivize some of these corporates, you know, the stick and the horse and the carrot, give them, be it tax breaks, but there are opportunities which would help provide alternative sources of energy for the state or for the country. It will give us a clearer environment, and the proceeds will have a social economic effect.
The more you learn how to make the environment safe, the more better and the more healthier you become.
Other experts here share their thoughts on the ongoing climate summit, in which the issue of loss and damaged payments is taking center stage of negotiations.
we will get favorable responses from them because they have to. It is an obligation on both on all our parts, you know. And climate is not. It affects everybody. The sun shines on everybody's head. So I think we will get somewhere from them.
So we don't always have to now go back to the Western world with our begging bowls. We can start some of those initiatives here. Maybe if we did start some of those initiatives here, we will now adopt the moral high ground and give us a say in the matter. But with this kind of environment that we have, and we haven't even taken the first step, nobody's going to listen to us, and rightly so.
In the meantime, the symposium also aims to ensure government policies directly affects the aspiration of the youths and marginalized communities.
A USAID-funded program, Feed the Future Nigeria, recently held its agribusiness investment deal room designed to increase the flow of funding to qualified women across the federation. The program aims to strengthen Nigeria's enabling environment for agricultural sector growth. Well, experts here also urged farmers to adopt climate-smart approaches, which will broaden access to finance and enhance growth of the agricultural sector. And they also called on the government and private sector to moderate investment in the flood-prone areas to minimize some of its devastating impacts due to climate change.
We supporting businesses to meet those requirements helps them to put in the structures in place to ensure that they can access the right funding, and then they can use that fund to expand their businesses in a way that is environmentally compliant. So this is important to us because we want to see that businesses are more responsible to the shocks that are coming from the environmental issues beyond just climate change, but also in terms of like proper infrastructures to allow their businesses operate optimally.
Wherever the economy in the world, we cannot effectively, forbid flooding or what have you. What we would continue to do is to be able to generate data, to be able to say that, where areas that are prone to, flooding situations, what can you do to probably, evacuate production activities from those zones, and where you're not able to evacuate effectively, maybe moderate whatever investment, in the hope that the impact may not be as bad as it is this year.
Plastic pollution remains an environmental challenge, and research has found that these plastics, when they break to tiny bits, are ingested by marine animals, which are then consumed by humans. In this report, which is in partnership with WildAid, we take a look at how plastic pollution affects the marine ecosystem and efforts towards reducing plastic pollution through different
Microplastics are transferred to fish and may reach humans through consumption.
Aquatic insects were collected from Osun River and Ogun River. Specifically, I targeted the metropolitan, the capital cities of Osun State and Ogun State. But the snail samples that were used for my first empirical finding were collected from Osun River. And to my surprise, when I did the study, I found out that polyethylene, that's one of the common plastic polymers around there, one of the commonest plastics that we have, polyethylene. It was found in the animal tissues of the snails that I used 2 species of snails are collected from Osun River in Osogbo.
Lagos, home to more than 15 million people, produces roughly 2,500 tons of plastic waste daily. And according to local recyclers, only an estimated 13% is recycled, while the bulk of it ends up constituting an environmental nuisance. But what is the government doing to solve this environmental challenge?
Charity begins at home. So what we do is we want to start from the government offices. When we can ban the single-use plastic from the government offices, then it becomes a clear sign that we will not be able to tolerate this. I think other offices will take after us and make sure that they adopt the same policy, because saving the planet is not the only government job, it's everybody's job. What we do is that we are creating a circular economy around most of our waste management now, especially for the plastic bottles and the single-use ones, so that people can use what you call waste can be converted to other things like materials for making chairs, and which can still be recycled in another 10, 20, 30 years down the line. That's where to go now. So creating an economy around the waste management is what is obtainable everywhere in the world now. And that's where Lagos is now. And that's where we're going eventually. That's where we will be.
Uncollected trash can be a huge challenge for most developing countries, and for the fastest growing city on the African continent, waste collection have always been inadequate, particularly in poor neighborhoods. But an eco-startup, WeCyclers, is empowering residents to help solve Lagos' waste problem.
Basically, how we collect plastic is we create awareness, we sensitize people on the importance of recycling their waste, their recyclable waste. So we talk to them, we encourage them to recycle with us to capture value from their waste. So from there, we start picking up from them. So basically, what we do is, after talking to these people, after sensitizing them on the importance of recycling, we then register them with us. After registering them with us, we give them 2 options. They either come here to drop off their recyclables, or we go to their house to pick up from them. So we have riders who go from household to household to pick up these recyclables and bring them here. So after these materials are collected from our subscribers, they are brought to the operations hub, where these materials are made to go into different processes, different recycling processes. So first, they are taken to the scaling area where the materials are weighed, and then they are turned into their respective sheds. So we have different sheds for these recyclables. We have the PET shed, we have the flexible shed. These flexibles are the pure nylon, the high density, the low density. So we have them in a different shed. We have different shed for paper and cardboard. We have different shed for aluminum cans. We have for random plastics. So these materials are sorted by colors and by types.
Since 2012, WeCyclers have picked up 25,000 tons of plastic waste and signed up more than 15,000 households who get paid quarterly or daily. The company has a pool of more than 150 employees who are into collecting, picking and sorting of plastic waste, and are paid an average income of about $100 a month.
Our major focus at WeCyclers is to empower low-income communities. And these low-income communities are constituted by both male and females, but we believe that women are mostly marginalized in these communities. So this is a way of making the women earn money for themselves. We do not discriminate anyway. I mean, we have men who work with us. So women prefer to work as sorters, while men work as riders, as bailers, and all of that, but we have male sorters too.
Studies reveal that water sachet, shopping bags and pet bottles make up the bulk of plastic waste, which end up in the drainages and in the oceans. But a non-governmental organization, FABE Foundation, is solving some of these problems through regular beach cleanups.
Efforts to reduce plastic waste in Lagos has intensified over the last few years. Individuals and groups have devised innovative means to rid the megacity of plastics.
One of them is FABE Foundation. Lagos-based environmental activist Temitope Okunu runs a not-for-profit environmental health and sustainability organization, FABE International Foundation. She is passionate about the establishment of an eco-conscious generation committed to the restoration, conservation and protection of the environment. She and her team, through one of the organization's programs, Tidy Nigeria, frequently engage coastal communities on beach cleanups and sensitization programs on how to live more sustainably, thereby promoting a circular economy.
We believe that there is a problem with plastic pollution already because of the mindset of the people. And it is necessary that we go beyond cleanup. In fact, that is what the Tidy Nigeria project that we're doing on the island is all about. We want to make people understand that the plastic pollution is not just, solving an immediate problem. We want them to see it as a crisis, and that the plastics that they throw into the lagoons, all our wildlife, they are eating it. Particularly the sea turtle feels that the plastics is a new diet, so they tend to eat it, particularly the plastic bags. It looks like the jellyfish, so the sea turtle animal will think that it is the jellyfish that they love so much. So they eat it, and then they fill up, it fills up their tummy and they are unable to eat any longer. And then this community where we are, it's a sea turtle environment where they come to nest and then they go back, they leave their hatchlings here, and then people get to capture them once in a while, eat them. There's a whole lot of myth around it as well, that the eggs of the sea turtle is nutritious, good for fertility, and so many things that they enjoy around the sea turtle animal and other animals from the ocean. So there's a lot of sensitization going on in this particular community. There's a lot of advocacy going on. And because the projects we're doing here is beyond cleanup, we have introduced to the community how to be more sustainable. We have introduced to them the circular economy. At FABE International Foundation, our role is to get the community members, people around the island, to understand that it is bad, prohibited, dangerous to allow their PET bottles end up in the ocean or in the landfill. And that is why we have brought the solution.
Here at Okwaja Beach, dozens of volunteers, which include members of this community, often collect plastic trash from the shorelines. Mrs. Fatima was a food vendor whose property got destroyed by a heavy rainfall. She tells me she now makes a living through picking these plastics, and the income she has generated from it so far has given her household a new lease of life.
He told me join in FABE. Òun ní pé ńgbà tí ọjà ò lọ déédéé kò sówó tá máa fi sanwó shop wọ́n dẹ̀ ti gba shop lọ́wọ́ wa. Baálẹ̀ wa invite wa pé ká wá síbi program kan bí àwọn FABE ṣe wá nìyẹn. Ńgbà tá a débẹ̀ wọ́n sọ̀rọ̀ nípa plastics wípé bá ṣe máa ṣa plastic wọ́n gbà ká máa ṣa plastic wọ́n tún explain fún wa. Mo wá kọ́kọ́ ṣa ti tèmi mo gbé lọ ẹsẹ̀kẹsẹ̀ tí mo gbé débẹ̀ wọ́n fún mi lówó ó yà mí lẹ́nu mo ní eléyìí náà madam mo dẹ̀ àwọn náà ní àwọn èèyàn kọ̀ọ̀kan náà tí wọ́n ò níṣẹ́ tọkàn máa iṣẹ́ kan máa jókòó sílé mo wá lọ bá wọn lẹ́yọ kọ̀ọ̀kan pé ó yá nǹkan báyìí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni everybody náà ṣe bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣa plastic ní àti bá yẹn a ṣáà máa gbé lọ wọ́n máa fún wa lówó so à ń ná ọkàn wa ń balẹ̀ a fi ń jẹun a fi ń rán ọmọ nílé ìwé ìfún wa fi ń raṣọ nígbà míì gan so nǹkan tó jẹ́ kí èmi join ni wọn nìyẹn.
While there are perceived efforts towards promoting a circular economy around waste management, it is believed that policies such as the extended producer's responsibility, if implemented, could control the production of non-recyclable plastics, which are of little value when compared with other plastics in the recycling market.
Before now, we used to collect, when we collect the PET bottles, the plastics, we give them to recycling companies or we give them to Loma. But now, recently, we have a hub here in Okwaja. So when we collect the bottles and the plastics from here, we take them to our recycling hub to process them. Members of the community usually bring their plastics to us and we pay them instantly. And some of them do not necessarily need the cash. So we also give them values such as health insurance, household materials and stuff like that.
In order for us to continue getting more recyclables, we encourage the Lagos State government to create a law that encourages people to sort their recyclables from source. If these recyclables are sorted from the source, we will not have the problem of having recyclables in the landfills. We won't have the problem of people disposing their recyclables indiscriminately, making them clog gutters, causing problems for drainages, becoming sites for disease-causing vectors like mosquitoes. It is also important for them to enforce the EPR law, the Extended Producer Responsibility, where companies who generate these recyclables are encouraged or made to partner with recycling companies, where they take these recyclables off the environment and use them to make new products.
In all of this, experts say concrete action is needed to improve how waste is managed. It is also believed that progressive schemes should be set up to allow consumers, policymakers and brand owners adopt the mindset that recyclables aren't disposable but are instead valuable resources.
And that's it on the show. Thank you so much for watching. If you have comments or stories you'd like to share with us, you can send it to my Twitter handle at @eomokwariola_tvc. Would love to hear from you. Until I come your way next time, remember, together we can build a sustainable world. I am Esther Mokwariola. Bye for now.